Yes, it's working. Okay, so hi everybody. One of the things that a lot of my students have to do in the communication courses is presentations, and people hate them for all sorts of legitimate and illegitimate reasons. But I thought that given you've all got to do one and there's no way out of it, it would make sense for me to make you this quick video. Just I'll kind of batter through some of the key points. And obviously, if anybody wants me to elaborate on any of this or help them a little bit with some of the details later on, maybe the charts I'm going to show you, for example, no bother. Just give me a shout and I can give you a hand. But to give you a sort of overview about what are the things that would make a successful presentation, what should you be doing to give yourself the best chance? Well, the first thing, as I've got there, is doing it properly the first time. Loads of people who don't pass the presentations the first time, it is really just because they haven't taken it seriously. So they come in and they're obviously not properly prepared, so they're given, like they're told, it's a 5 minute talk, and they come in and talk for 3 minutes, and you ask them why it's only 3 minutes, and they just shrug at you as if, oh well, how was I supposed to know? It's if you want to fail it the first time, so you've just got to do it again later on, I suppose that's your business, but it doesn't seem like a particularly good use of anyone's time, realistically. So make sure you do the things you're meant to do the first time, or you just give yourself twice the work. The other thing is really like knowing what it is you're doing a presentation on. Now, this is different for all of you because you're all in different classes. And even within the classes, I like to try and let people choose what they want to do their presentations on. But you often see people come to do them, and again, it's clear they're not really properly prepared. They've maybe read through the stuff a couple of times, made a quick PowerPoint and assumed that was them. And then as soon as the tiniest little thing goes wrong during the presentation, they forget a word, something happens, they get a wee bit distracted, a bit nervous, anything at all. You realise that actually they've just been depending on either memorising a set of things or on an insufficient set of notes. The way you're good at presentations is if you make sure the stuff you're talking about is stuff that you really properly know about. And now that simply means doing your research and actually doing as it says at the bottom bullet point there, doing the practicing as well. You should be treating this like any other assessment, that you'd put the work into to make sure you pass and make sure you do all the things you're meant to be doing. That thing there as well, where I'm saying clear, calm, and expressive, okay? It's part of the reason it's so important to practice. People who are not used to doing this, especially when they're doing it in videos, talk far, far, far too quickly, don't speak clearly enough, so they mumble. That happens a lot even sort of in person, and you have to stop people and tell them to start again. It's all very annoying. And the other thing is actually being expressive, speaking like a human being who is talking to other human beings. That's a wee bit trickier for some people in the video chat thing and the recordings, and I get that, but you do need to make the effort to do it, okay? You can't just, come on in a recorded presentation or an in-person one and just speak in this kind of flat monotone all the way through. You're supposed to be actually delivering a presentation. But again, that comes from confidence. If you know your stuff, if you've practiced it enough, if you know that you're doing all the right things the first time, then it becomes much easier to just speak like a human being and actually engage people that way, and it is part of the assessment. Another thing, so about notes and PowerPoints and this kind of stuff, these things are there to keep you on track, and that is it. Okay, you do not under any circumstances write yourself a script to try and memorize, or a script that you'll try to read. Okay, you stick to the little short bullet points, like the thing you're looking at just now, like this PowerPoint. This is about as much as there should be as a rule, on a slide, unless you're putting up something like a quotation for some reason. You'd put the whole quote up, fine. Apart from that, you really shouldn't ever see sentences. You should definitely never see paragraphs. Short, simple statements like this, and they are designed to make sure that you go through the key points you want to go through in the correct order. Okay. Now, that's important for a number of reasons, but one of the big ones is that thing about saying that you're meant to be presenting to, not reading at. If you start reading, reading out the presentation that you've prepared, you will fail. If you are simply reading a set of notes that are in front of you without making any attempt to actually present properly, or even worse, reading out a PowerPoint, which is the worst thing you can do in a presentation, you're not going to pass. Okay, it's not a reading test. It's not a test of your ability to read out loud. Okay, this isn't school. It's a test of your ability to present information and engage an audience. So you need to make sure that you're doing that. It's why it's so important to, for example, speak expressively from that last slide. And see just wee things, right? See the number of students that you see, you know, actual grown-up adults who've obviously spent half an hour messing about with stupid slide transitions and having words appear and disappear and break, all that kind of stuff, right? Nobody cares. It's not primary 4. Okay, make it nice and clear and simple so you can work through it, and so it's not some ridiculous distraction to your audience. It's meant to help them. Okay, so keep that in mind. Another thing, this is a big thing with presentations, okay, if you've only got bullet points and stuff up on, say, up on the board if you're talking in person, or on the screen if you're doing this, what else could you do or would you do with a presentation? Well, one of the things is how you use data. If you're trying to convey even vaguely complex information to people, it might be the case that some kind of visual representation helps them. You have to ask, would it help them first? And once you've done that, you have to think, right, well, if I think I need something, what do I need? And then how are you going to engage with it? It's not enough just to whack a chart up on the screen and abandon your audience and say, right, well, read that and understand it. So if I show you an example of this, right, here are the 2019 higher exam results for Scotland broken down by the deprivation levels across the country. Okay, now I know what this data means because I research it, but any normal person who's not me basically is going to look at that and it just looks like numbers. That's no use to people. Okay, you want to show them not the data but the story behind the data. They want to understand it. So maybe the thing to do here is show them some kind of chart. So maybe what we'd do is give them something like this. So this has got the same basic data in it, but what this is doing is actually showing them and allowing you, crucially, to interact with it. So at this point, you're then saying to your audience, so what this shows us is that the rates of students who get an A in their higher across the 10 deprivation sections and the numbers of them who are failing. And what you can clearly see at a glance is that inverted relationship. And if we build it up a little bit, what you can see here is that the percentage of pupils who fail is, over a third in the poorest areas and declines all the way down as you get to the richest areas. And that the rates of getting an A do the opposite. They start very low and they just work up and up and up and up, the richer students get. So that's showing you much the same. It is the same data that the chart comes from, the table that you saw before, but that's more useful. It's more interesting to people. There's a much better chance they're going to go away understanding the point you're trying to make than if you either A, just put the table up on the screen, or B, just start reading out numbers at them. You need to think about your audience all the time. Finally, presentations have all got a question and answer section, and this is also a key part of the assessment. Okay, you can't just do this as well. We'll ask a couple of stupid questions. Somebody will say, why did you choose this topic? I'll say, I thought it was interesting, and then I'll go and sit down because I always got away with that in school and in my previous courses. It isn't going to happen. Okay, you need to engage with your audience. It might, at the lowest levels, it might not be much that's required, but you need to engage with the audience. And for any of you who are looking at this, level 6 or HN, that kind of stuff, I need to see some quite detailed interaction. So engage with the audience by seeking to clarify a point, expand on a point, elaborate something, revisit something. It's not enough to give 2 and 3 word answers. What I need to see at that point is that you know your material well enough, and that you've prepared enough that when somebody asks you a question that isn't necessarily on the list of bullet points that you had, that it's okay, that you can adapt to that like an adult and give them a response that at least partially answers what they've asked. You might not have every bit of data if they ask you some really complex question, which shouldn't happen in a course like this, obviously. But if you make sure that you are able to answer nice and clearly, as say, elaborate on a point or clarify something, revisit something, whatever it happens to be, you'll find it much easier to pass this assessment first time. Okay, so if anyone needs any help with any of this, give me a shout. As I say, particularly, if you want to put charts into a presentation and don't even know how to make them, never mind get them into PowerPoint or whatever, it's fine. I can help with all of that. But hopefully this video gives you a reasonably clear sense of the key things that we're looking for in a presentation and what you should be doing to try and make sure that you pass these assessments the first time that you sit them, which saves a lot of work for you and saves hassle for me as well. So everyone's happy. Okay, cheers.